Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. The Child Care Board is tackling the issue of cyber abuse head-on. It's reaching out to school children utilizing technology to impart knowledge on the responsible use of social media. Let's hear from Kishmar Sinjus.
It's an emerging problem with which the Child Care Board has to address. With the rising misuse of social media, Director Joan Crawford is assuring Barbadians that, like all forms of abuse, the board will conduct the necessary investigations.
Sometimes we receive information via email that indicates an act on the part of children or children and adults, and it forces us to investigate in the form of referring these matters to the police. So in order to deal with this, it was felt with our partner UNICEF that we should really address this emerging problem. This is a form of child abuse, and child abuse is one of the core functions of the Child Care Board in which we have to investigate.
The Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit fully supports the youth seminars. This seminar, the first of 6, was titled Adolescence and Cyber Abuse. Director of the CJRPU, Cheryl Willoughby, says the matter is one that must be addressed at all levels.
Within the schools, as well as within the homes and the communities. Cyberbullying is a situation that can cause severe mental problems for the victims of this particular crime. It is important that young people understand that when they perpetuate this against other young people, they can cause severe harm to that person. Cyberbullying can result in violence at school if a person believes that another person is harming them or hurting them. They can resort to violence at school. The victim can skip school, which can impact on their education.
Minister of Social Care Steve Blackett says many victims of cyber abuse suffer in silence. He told students that with rights come responsibilities.
Cyber abuse and cyberbullying affects your self-worth, which is so vital to your happiness. If you don't feel good about yourself, then it is going to be somewhat hard to feel good about anything else.
Students are being challenged to work towards maximizing their worth and potential. Kishmar Sinjus, Cbc News.
President of the Young Women's Christian Association, Timita Griffith, is still concerned about the number of children going to school without breakfast. To reduce those numbers, the WYCA is hosting a fun fest at Queen's College on the 27th of May to raise enough funds to extend its breakfast program. She says many beneficiaries have shown improvements in their classroom behavior and schoolwork. The WYCA is also partnering with other organizations to get the message out there.
Given the large number of children who benefit from our Breakfast Club program, some 1,300 plus children, and we cater to over 15 schools, including primary and secondary children. They are supported through the program, and we recently added another northern school to our list.
It's time for Barbados to get away from traditional funeral services. That's the unwavering belief of the man responsible for placing a corpse on a motorcycle during a funeral service. Sharika Griffith has more in this report.
Brian Bentham returned to Barbados in 1995 after 5 years abroad studying and learning the art of embalming. Months after starting his new job, he suggested to his employer that the dead could be posed in different positions.
I asked, where is it written or where is it said that you have to lay in the casket across your hands? Why can't you put somewhere to stand or to sit or play football, hockey, whatever? And he was deemed a mad person.
He admits that he experimented a few times, even posing one corpse with his eyes open. But Barbadians prefer the traditional way of doing things. So when the idea to pose Tony Barrow on the bike she loves so much was mooted, it presented several challenges, but it was embraced by all and he went about executing it.
This was the Thursday evening. She was due for viewing on the Friday. I started to work about 6:30. 11 o'clock, I still could not get the body balance on the motorcycle. It was difficult because the motorcycle, if the motorcycle was up on like the two stands, it'd be easy, but the motorcycle was leaning. So when you put the body on, then the body would lean.
While not disclosing just how he got it done, he says placing one foot on the ground while the other rested on the bike made a big difference. As for the public's response, he says it's been mostly positive.
You get the people who say, you know, they wouldn't do that, it's morbid, but death is morbid. Death is morbid. I guess it's a first. And some of the comments that I hear, I just smile. Right? If it's constructive criticism, I take a note of it. If it's just people criticizing for the sake of criticizing, you just ignore it.
Mr. Bentham says he's already been approached by others wanting themselves or their loved ones to be displayed doing what they love when they die. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Former Democratic Labour Party candidate for St. Joseph, Randall Rouse, will be contesting the St. Joseph seat as an independent candidate in the next general election. Mr. Rouse, who contested the seat under the DLP in 3 previous elections, made the announcement during a press conference at his St. Joseph office. He says he made the decision mainly due to what he claims to be the lack of representation in the constituency.
But my primary reason for contesting this election is the totally poor representation given to this constituency by the parliamentary representative. The representation that he gives is no less than scandalous. Our vision of representation, as it relates to me and him, are miles apart.
Having lost his previous elections, Mr. Rouse intends to have a different approach for the next one. He says he is optimistic about his chances, even though the constituency has been dominated by the Barbados Labour Party. Mr. Rouse says the residents want something different.
The young people of Barbados today are not interested in partisan politics. They're interested in people who are prepared to do something to help them to achieve their fullest potential.
Okay, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Yes is a beautiful word. It empowers us. It brings satisfaction. And since you earn up to 3% cash back on everyday purchases with the Scotiabank Gold MasterCard, that's a lot of satisfaction, a lot more often. Plus, you get a welcome bonus from the get-go. Scotiabank Gold MasterCard is the card that keeps on giving, so it's easier for you to create many more precious yes moments. Apply today.
BMX 2017, I hope to see you there from the 2nd to the 5th of June, 10 to 10 every day, with fashion and entertainment, furniture and design, food, services and activities with the whole family in mind. So come to the Lloyd Skin Sandy Foot Center, don't you stick. BMX 2017, we going back to basics, we going back to basics, BMX. I'm just a DJ, baby, mixing for you.
Only one station delivers the soundtracks of your life.
Hey, we're 94.7 FM, the University of Musical Diversity, the most frequently frequented frequency in the Caribbean. I'm the Admiral.
Put on your dancing shoes and get on the dance floor. We've got all of your classic jams right here at 94.7 FM with me, Jaquila, in the midday.
It's Valentino Tempo all over your radio right here on 94.7 every weekday afternoon, 2 until 7. It's your afternoon getaway. So join me right here, the greatest hits of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and now.
94.7 FM.
A representative for the Barbados Dive Operators Association says it's very disappointing that Barbados is importing fish. Andre Miller believes this is because of inadequate marine protected areas on the island. According to him, there are only 2, Carlisle Bay and Folkestone. That's why he's calling for the construction of more marine parks to resolve the issue.
There was a time when Barbados was self-sufficient. We are now importing fish. I'm embarrassed. We import fish to Barbados because there are no fish on the reef. If we did not have Carlisle Bay, if we did not have Folkestone, I think half of the dive shops in this room would not be here right now. Imagine if we could spread this. Fishermen get more fish, we have more fish on the reef, the ecosystem is better. All of these breakwaters we build to protect our beaches that are eroding, a lot of people don't realize it, but that is also a result of overfishing. No fish, more algae, less coral, less beaches. So guys, most importantly, if there's one thing that we all agree on in this room, is that we need to protect our fish life. And we're not fighting against the fishermen, we're working with the fishermen.
A government senator agrees natural gas prices must increase slightly to allow the National Petroleum Corporation to provide the service to all Barbadians. Minister in the Prime Minister's office, Senator Patrick Todd, charges that the BLP administration, while in power, was too weak to implement the initiative. He was speaking in the upper chamber on the National Petroleum Amendment Bill.
I cry shame on the Barbados Labour Party that for mere political expediency, they were more concerned about retaining the government when they were in office between 1994 and 2008 than doing what was in the national interest, providing greater access to natural gas for the residents of Barbados. In terms of what I'm talking about is the fact that the Barbados Labour Party knew that there was a need to increase the natural gas rates so that more funding would be provided to the National Petroleum Corporation to ensure that more Barbadians will be able to access natural gas. But they were afraid. They did not have the political fortitude.
An opposition senator is defending lawyers in Barbados. Wilfred Abrams, who is also a former president of the Barbados Bar Association, says of 1,200 attorneys on the island, only 10 of them are facing action by the courts. He says far from being dishonest, most of them have a social conscience.
The Barbados Bar Association, at no benefit to itself, for the last 6 months, every Saturday have been running free legal consultations in various parishes throughout the country. They're going to churches, they're going to community groups, they're doing it in halls, free. 10, 11 lawyers every Saturday going to answer questions and give their consultations free, no obligation. And that's a service that the bar, the umbrella body for the 1,200 lawyers in Barbados, is presenting to the public of Barbados because the bar cares, because some lawyers have a social conscience.
More national vocational qualification training courses can be expected from the Small Business Association. This was revealed during the SBA's graduation ceremony for its QuickBooks course. Labor Minister Senator Dr. Esther Bayer-Suku pointed out her ministry is working with the association to increase training capacity.
My ministry's partnership with the Small Business Association also continues with a project to build its training capacity to deliver certified specialized training to the small business community, particularly in areas, as you've heard, of e-commerce and small business accounting.
Dr. Bayer-Suku explained the NVQ courses are going to become more important as people continue to compete for jobs.
This would allow these persons to have access to jobs, not only locally but regionally. And as we work with international partners, the value of the CVQ is recognized, and we're attempting to have it line up with other international qualifications as well.
There are opportunities for growth in the coconut industry. However, policies are needed to support and maintain the sector. That's the thinking of Executive Director of the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, Barton Clark.
We need to come up with a plan for the industry. How much are we going to produce? What are we going to produce? Where are we going to produce it? Who are we going to produce it? Not only primary production, but in terms of processing. What are the products that we can produce, etc. Right? That needs to be framed within a policy. A policy for the development and support of the coconut industry. Similarly, we have a policy on sugar, we have a policy on cotton, so you also need to have a policy on coconut.
Meanwhile, Chief Agricultural Officer Lennox Chandler says a shipment of seedlings is expected to arrive soon. However, these trees can take up to 5 years to bear fruit. He's therefore suggesting planting other crops in the meantime.
Where you have your early plantings that you can utilize the areas around the trees for planting of other crops. So you should be intercropping of something like sweet potato or hot pepper, which will give you some early cash flow so that by the time the trees begin to bear, then you know you'll be still making some money and still just having the field open and the trees just growing waiting for 4 or 5 years.
A safety and health specialist thinks a culture has to be created within businesses so employees will want to report accidents that happen on the job. That's according to Melanie James, safety coordinator at the Barbados Employers Confederation. She says there's usually a negative connotation that a company is reporting an accident, since the employee might be blamed for making the company's occupational health and safety profile look badly.
Allow them to feel as though what they're bringing to the table is something that is valued and something that the employers can use or management can use to make decisions. If it's always a situation where I can't believe that we have another accident, or is this happening again, I thought I did something before, and you say these things in front of employees or even supervisors, because supervisors find themselves in a very interesting position. They're right in the middle. They're not management, nor are they lower end employees, or line employees. So if they themselves hear the manager saying something, more likely they will be able to transfer that information to the employees.
Ms. James says keeping accurate safety and health figures all feed into a safety and health profile that would appeal to investors.
What does Barbados look like when you're coming to invest in Barbados, when you want to employ persons in Barbados? What kind of culture can you expect? So you say, for instance, we look at the sectors. If I want to invest in a hotel, does that mean then that when I have a hotel that my average rating for accidents per year may be 10 to 15? And would it mean that I would have most cuts or slips and trips? What can I expect? So having an OSH profile basically also lends to an investment decision or opportunity.
The month of May is a very special one for us here at the CBC as we celebrate 13 years of the immensely popular Q in the community. We traveled to Rice's today for the latest installment of what's become one of the newest Bajan traditions. 13 glorious years for Q, and when we caught up with the team in St. Philip, co-host Kimberly Skeet was truly enjoying herself. She says she's proud to be part of such a successful journey.
There's always something very special about 13. It's the year of maturity, it's the year of becoming a teenager. And usually when you become a teenager, you start to develop in a different road, a different direction. And Q100.7 FM has grown by leaps and bounds, changing its direction and molding its direction to the people within our community, because it is our community that made us. We want to take this opportunity to thank all of our Q100.7 FM listeners, those on QFM.BB, at home and abroad, for journeying with us from year 1 to year 13 and beyond.
And for the 13th anniversary, Q will be taking the show across the globe, all the way to the United Kingdom.
This month, the 28th, we will be in Coventry. Joanne Seeley, she will be our guest host for Q in the Community. As you know, Archulus, he is our mainstay host for the actual program. And every year we get to go to different countries, different territories across the Western Hemisphere, Canada, the US, Toronto to be exact, Tampa, Florida, if I want to get specific. But this year we're going to the UK, and Joanne is going to be flying our Bajan/Q in the Community flag.
Anytime you're at Q, you can find one of the most popular vendors in Barbados, Ling Pong, the fish cake boss. He says he's the longest serving vendor at events in Barbados and was hard at work with 2 of his 13 children. You might know him from his signature call, Last Two.
I do 42 years at Kensington non-stop as the oldest vendor there. And they just come up a day with the understanding, trade, Last Two. And it worked from there. And they've been doing it lively, but they love Last Two. The Last Two, last one, they call me all sorts of things.
He shared the secret to his fish cakes.
I don't hold back where fish is concerned. My 3 buckets go get a case of fish. That's 50 pounds, right? You got to put fish in the fish case. No baking powder, no flour, that's a secret. no boy in Barbados can get it do so.
Marketing specialist at the CBC, Rondell French, says the team is continuously seeking out ways to enhance the experience.
This year we are pushing the theme We Are Family. So we are celebrating from the month of May right throughout. So we decided to make it more than just dancing, eating and drinking. We introduced some fun games, and as you saw earlier, the crowd enjoyed it. So going on, we're going to introduce some more fun games, and be more interactive with the audience.
And of course, Q is all about the patrons. Given the importance of the tourism sector to Barbados, the country is being reminded of security matters. Political counselor at the Canadian High Commission, Agnes Pust, told a tourist security assessment meeting that aside from being an economic driver, the sector is considered as a soft target for crime and terrorism. Canada is providing assistance through a program with support from the Organization of American States, the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, and the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Institute. The program is a forerunner to a national tourism security course in June. Post sees the input of participants as valuable to crafting the 5-day training program.
All of you have the chance now to lend your expertise to coming up with what the elements of that 5-day training workshop will actually be. And why is this important to Canada? Not only because we have many tourists who come here, but also because what happens here affects us at home. We live in a virtual world. Tourism is very much a person-to-person encounter and experience, and we want to feel secure that despite the miles that separate us, Canada and Barbados are very, very close.
Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, Celia Pollard-Jones, notes that aside from personal security, there are other factors to consider.
Computer security, such as threats from Trojans to ransomware, with a devastating effect on our businesses, but more importantly, on our personal lives. Terrorist attacks that are now ubiquitous result in loss of life and untold destruction of property, usually in popular destinations and at outstanding landmarks. Just recently, Europol reported on a cyber attack that infected at least 100,000 organizations in 150 countries with malware that effectively holds countries to ransom by locking computer files and demanding ransoms to release them.
After the break, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across our region.
Diamond Dazzler, it's time to play. Diamond Dazzler, the new instant $250,000 scratch game from the Barbados Lottery. Available at select lottery outlets.
I believe I'll be at Soul Ultimate Gospel in association with Life 97.5 FM. Saturday, May 27th, dancing and praising the 25th year of Barbados Gospel Fest with Jonathan Nelson and Charles Jenkins. Get your ticket for Soul Ultimate Gospel in association with Life 97.5 FM at Kensington Oval for a time of Thanksgiving.
He can move mountains.
Tickets, $50 advance, $60 at the door. VIP $140.
Stay informed with news you can trust.
Law is searching for the suspect or suspects responsible for a shooting.
Current, accurate, Morning Barbados News, brought to you every Wednesday at 7 a.m. with the compliments of the Special Olympics Outreach and Skills Program, a project by the European Union.
The ongoing crisis in Venezuela is expected to be one of the major agenda items for Caribbean foreign ministers meeting here in Barbados over the next 2 days. The ministers are also expected to discuss and come up with a united way forward regarding the most recent developments in Europe and the United States. Lisa Broom tells us more.
Addressing the opening of the 20th meeting of the Council for Foreign and Community Relations, or COFCOR, at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre this morning, Senator Maxine McLean acknowledged that these are turbulent times for the regional grouping. She notes that the changes on the international scene, both in Europe with Brexit and in the US with the new Donald Trump administration, are likely to have a profound impact on CARICOM.
All indications are that there will be substantial changes in the nature of our key bilateral relations. The imminent exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union will generate domestic and foreign policy changes in the United Kingdom. These in turn will affect the countries of CARICOM, given the deep and long-standing historical relationship.
Senator McLean says how badly these changes affect the existing relationships will be determined by the region's level of preparedness and how well it coordinates its efforts to shape a relationship with the United Kingdom. The new chairman of COFCOR says CARICOM is also waiting to see what type of intervention the new Trump administration has planned, because while there hasn't been any engagement, some policies are already hurting the region.
We also have to determine what effect the new stand of the United States administration on climate change may have on the objectives of the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change and other efforts to mitigate climate change. This is a priority issue.
As it relates to Venezuela, both Senator McLean and CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque said the aim of the talks is to come up with a unified position on the matter.
The strength of our integration movement gives us a solid platform upon which to build our resilience. The COFCOR, and indeed CARICOM, are in a process of adapting to change and building our resilience as we seek new opportunities for advancement and a strengthened community.
12 Caribbean foreign ministers, along with their delegations, are present at the two-day meeting. Lisa Broom, CBC News.
A suggestion tonight that the economic fortunes of CARICOM lie in the emerging markets of the world rather than with its traditional partners. This from St. Vincent and the Grenadines Foreign Minister and outgoing Chair of the Council for Foreign and Community Relations, or COFCOR, Sir Louis Straker. He says Africa is one of the areas with which CARICOM can develop a strategic alliance.
Africa is one of the fastest growing areas. We have cultural and ethnic alliance with Africa, and there we are to pursue. Also, we have to make alliance with those countries that are like-minded with us. This is why we put such a strong premium on our support for Venezuela. Because Venezuela is a country that, through its ALBA Bank and through the Petro-Caribe, has given tremendous support to the islands of the Caribbean. And we should be closely allied with countries like Cuba and Venezuela.
On the issue of Venezuela, Sir Louis is adamant that CARICOM should stand firmly with the South American country and resist any external forces intervening in that sovereign state's affairs.
What we need to do is to work together with other like-minded countries, including the Vatican, in order to have internal dialogue. We cannot afford to have major countries in the region do to Venezuela what they did in Haiti by removing Bertrand Aristide and try to picture this as a fight for democracy.
A select committee of CARICOM finance ministers has been working on an action plan to address the correspondent banking issue, which continues to plague the region's financial sector. This information from Secretary General of CARICOM, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque. Over the last few years, international banks have been cutting links with banks in the region, taking away their power to complete international payments and settlements. It has resulted in the Belize Central Bank having to rescue some institutions there, while others in Antigua and Barbuda were given notice of the intention to sever ties. Speaking to CBC News on the sidelines of this morning's COFCOR meeting, Ambassador LaRocque says the Prime Ministers were updated on the work done so far by the CARICOM Central Bank governors, as well as the Finance Minister Committee headed by Antigua's Gaston Brown.
There's a whole range of issues. We're developing an action plan. There's a broad outline of what we want to do because of the various decisions, but Now we have to be actioning it. And of course, we do know that some persons in diaspora are already being active in terms of their own contacts. But we have been in interaction in the past administration for sure. This administration engagement has not yet taken place. It's still new. With Treasury, with State Department, and people on the Hill and Congress and so on. And we're going to keep on being active. We also extended this to Europe and to the United Kingdom and so on, because it's very, very important for us to address that.
Ambassador LaRoque says CARICOM is anxious for a sit-down meeting with the high-ranking members of the Trump administration to discuss some major concerns.
We've put out a feeler to, more than a feeler, we would have been happy to have welcomed them here at a very senior level, actually, but we understand that it was not possible at this point in time, and we're waiting for the opportunity very, very soon to engage between the foreign ministers and the Secretary of State.
In Venezuela, 2,600 troops are being sent to a western province by the government. That's where a 15-year-old boy was killed. Despite what is being suggested by President Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela is on the brink of collapse.
Venezuela's dark lurch into poverty and chaos is on display as you drive into the capital. This food truck breaking down for mere seconds before it was looted. Basic food is scarce. No shortage of bleach, but long lines for bread. This crisis, all created by the mad policies of a government that now wants to hide the collapse, cracking down on and intimidating journalists. We had to go undercover, and much of our filming was done covertly to avoid arrest. With some poor nearing starvation, the people demand change in violent clashes. Tens of lives lost, as desperation meets tear gas and police birdshot. You've heard of the Molotov cocktail? Well, that will be too simple for a once suave, gas-rich state. So this is the poo-poo-tov, a sewage bomb. Mixed with gas and ammonia, he says, prepared directly for the police that throw tear gas bombs at us worth $60 each. My country doesn't have food, and we can't even protest peacefully. This is the daily standoff. The crowd sometimes attacked by pro-government thugs on motorcycles who open fire indiscriminately. Gunfire takes at least one life this day, that of 27-year-old Miguel Castillo. But it doesn't stop the daily battle to eat. Virginia has been doing this for 18 months to feed her 5 kids. She can't find work since she had this little one, but here sometimes finds what she calls meat. Sometimes I find stuffed bread, she says, rice, meat, beans, pasta. Some people are conscientious and put it in clean bags, leaving it out. So how has oil-rich Venezuela got so bad? In most countries, it's the market that sets the price of, let's say, for example, rice. But here in Venezuela, the government decides how much you should pay for most foodstuffs, but also what many people's wages actually are. And since the oil price has crashed globally, they've not been able to keep one up with the other. They basically run out of money. And now for rice like this, you need to find 3 times as many notes as these. And that's about a month's minimum wage. Wherever you look, repression and hunger haunt this once proud city. Jesus is a juggler, a magician for kids' parties, beaten heavily, he says, in the day before's protests, now begging for food when we find him. I spend 2 days on the street, he says, and 2 days at home. And when I go home, it's because I have food. Before, I'd get calls to do magic at birthday parties, but now, no. Now, with the country the way it is, magic doesn't help. They mourn the dead, the anger, quiet, indignant, not belligerent. South America is looking to see if Venezuela can fix its self-made crisis without major bloodshed, but they are falling so far.
A peek into the world of sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.